Muy buenos días. Un saludo especial a los participantes en esta conferencia sobre la Amazonía. También hacemos llegar nuestro agradecimiento a los organizadores. Para WCS, este espacio es una oportunidad única para presentar una caja de herramientas sobre la gestión territorial indígena y el manejo de recursos naturales, cuya elaboración concluyó recientemente.
That recently finished. This toolbox has been designed in order to be used via a multimedia interactive option with 10 processes, 24 tools, a number of technical resources and audiovisual material, and it is the result of 20 years of experience together with communities and organizations of Native peoples in order to strengthen their capacities for territorial management. We thank William Delter, who will be talking about the toolbox as part of a strengthening strategy for the capacities of Native people. Capacities. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Karina.
Thank you very much. Karina. Thank you very much, Karina, and I would like to cordially welcome all the people joining us. As Karina said, this is the result of 20 years of learning together with indigenous organizations with which we have worked together, and it does represent a change in the perspective, in the approach, the working approach, which is very important and is the foundation of all the organizations that have been taking part in this endeavor, and it joins technical assistance and everything related to indigenous communities in order to strengthen their territorial ability. So we're very happy, real happy indeed, in order to share this, and we do hope that some other organizations, allies, and everybody will be able to use the tools we are going to share with you. Thank you very much, Lillian, for this introduction. And in order to move on, I'll give the floor to Zulema Lane, who is a specialist on gender problems, and she belongs to Amazonia Boliviana, and she has contributed to creating this participating methodologies of territorial perspectives that really form a part of this toolbox that we will be presenting to you today. Thank you very much, Karina. I'll give you Karina. Thank you very much, and I'm going to share my screen. And the toolbox that was created for the Inca space was a decision made by the WCS, and it gathers Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. How did this idea start? In order to create the toolbox wall since 2012, we had this program, the Andes Amazonia Guaquiesa of Wilde Conservation Society, and during the last years it has been working in Bolivia and Peru. As you can see in the image, you see a document where we describe or explain the interaction of the processes and the lessons learned. Additionally, it was observed that along the years, technicians, the technical staff that works with the communities gathered important legacy that was unpublished. It was kept in computers, and it was the methodological guides that had to do with the interaction we had with communities, and of course an adaptation became important and began made. So we were able to do this with the different people of the country, and we were 238 documents that were collected, and they were classified according to 10 processes. Once they were reviewed, we selected the best elements of these methodologies in order to create the tools that we will be presenting to you in this toolbox. So the objective of it is to provide a set of participated methodologies that will help indigenous and communities in order indigenous organizations and communities to strengthen their capacities for the different processes that will be managed. These 10 steps, in short, these processes rather, are the following. First of all, we have to take into account indigenous rights for its territories and also to develop its autonomy. Next, we have the processes related to the strengthening of their organization, the creation of their life plans, and also the zoning processes of their territory, the self-regulation processes, the creation of their own rules in order to make use, a sustainable use of natural resources. The sixth process has to do with the management of a specific natural resources. The seventh process does require control and surveillance in the territory. The eight are the abilities of all these capabilities. The ninth is sustainable growth, and the 10th one is the result. I would like to tell you what is the content of each one of these processes. In the first case, process one is to rights. We have a court that will really spread out the rights of indigenous peoples, and this has to do with the UN declaration made for indigenous peoples. The second one, organization, has two tools. The first one is a methodological guide in order to evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of territorial governance and the management of natural resources. And the second tool is a guide questionnaire in order to facilitate these endeavors. As to the creation of life plans or territorial management, well, the tool has four participative tools. First of all, how to build our history, how to make a demographic census, how to make diagrams, but using events methodology, participative and transactional mapping, and in the framework of the plan, how to define all these priorities for men and women, and to also see the content, the community content of the plan. In terms of zonification, we see a manual that will really zone indigenous territories that allow to identify or help communities to see which are the ecosystem and zones, as well as those cultural relevant sites, the potential uses, the compatibility matrix in terms of uses, and the definition of zones for the correct management of all these endeavors. In this process, we see in a more advanced level, if we want to tackle all this, we have a manual in order to be helped. Next, we have self-regulation. This tool is formed by a guideline questionnaire to define the limits of the RRNN distribution, the definition of the people who will have access to these rights, the rules of access and its use, and the flexibility for its periodical use. The sixth process that makes a reference to the management of specific natural resources, well, we have this tool in order to analyze productive change, which are based on natural resources with the gender perspective. The seventh one has to do with the territorial control, and it does have a manual to create control plans and plans aimed at surveilling the territory. The eighth one has to do with management, and I'm speaking about finances. The ninth one is sustainable financing that allows us to reflect and to see that organizations themselves will be able to organize themselves, thus ensuring the sustainable financing, of course, but being fully transparent. This module, this training module, also includes some ideas as to how this fund that will be subject to tendering process will be managed. And finally, the 10th process, monitoring, includes 7 tools. First, we have the commune census in order to see all the demographics and how much of the identification and indigenous languages are used, and also the type of dwellings and basic services. Next, we have the probing of basic needs. We have a survey of economic income. And this is a very important tool, by the way, because this allows communities themselves to reflect on the knowledge and cultural practices they have. We have the use of time, and this is divided, of course, among women, men, girls, and boys. And here we also included the tool that makes reference to the most significant changes, and also a tool that allows us to identify conservation objects. So this is the content, the full content of this toolbox in terms of the 10 processes that were identified during the systematization we alluded to. Next, I would like to give you an example of how we use this tool interactively. This is the name of the site, of the dominion, and you can have access to it. So if we would like, for instance, to use the tools to create the plans, the territorial management plans, one of the most complex one indeed is to make a census, a population census. And what you have here is, on the one hand, how a census is designed. What is its objective? And what is a census about? And then, little by little, how can we make this census, and how, after making a drawing, and these are drawings made by the people of the community of their own houses, who are we going to visit? Who is going to be visited, and at what time all these homes will be visited? At the same time, as it happens with the other tools, so we have some suggestions in terms of recommendations, operational recommendations, in order to see how to fill this information out. You can have access to this census card or record, which is a standardized document in the different countries of which we have spoken of, and their programs. We are spoken about EMSES, Amazonia, and some others. So they can access here, they can access this tool, they can download this on their computers, and then they can fill out all the information in this census card or record. Here we have the previous consent, informed consent, and the part of the card where information will be included, written down. Next, if we want to process this data, we can go to this part where it reads information to be processed, and we can download a database that has already been designed in order to fill out all the information in terms of the census made, and automatically we will have the charts and data. Likewise, if we wanted to report the final information or make the final report, of the communal plan, we can download a form, a report form, that has been pre-designed and has the precise indication of the places where all this information has to be eliminated, in other words, or deleted, because sometimes part of this information appears twice. The idea of this effort of having tried, for instance, well, you see here that you have the database and you can just attach the results. So the idea of this effort is that in 3 days, working with a community, we can work on the information and the community will have its full diagnosis, and this will take just 3 days, and on the 4th day we can print these documents of the communal plan, taking into account that before this we had a problem, that we just took this information to the offices and then we had to go back again to the communities, and during this time, well, some memories, some information was lost. So the idea of this tool, for instance, is to start the process and to finish it in a continuous way and allowing the people to appropriate this information for the community. So I would like to wrap up my presentation thanking all my colleagues, the indigenous organizations and the communities and the leaders who have participated in these endeavors for all these years, interacting with technicians in order to make these tools better and better. Thank you very much. Indigenous peoples of the Amazonian have a close relationship with nature. During thousands of years, indigenous peoples have reserved their lands and territories together with the flora and fauna, and they do have natural resources and have preserved their culture. Now, the interaction they have really help to preserve forests, basins, species, and in these ways they guarantee the conservation of the communities and natural life. However, before the pressure made, indigenous peoples have identified the need of making joint decisions in order to protect their ancestral territories and natural resources. For a long period of time, Wildlife Conservation Society has worked with local communities in Bolivia, Peru, and Ecuador, and they were focused on defending this indigenous territorial aspects, trying to strengthen the cultural values, preserving natural ecosystems, and improving family life means. As a result, a toolbox was created, which is formed by strategies and natural resources in order to support these endeavors to have records, databases, reports, and information modules. Its objective is to provide participative methodologies that really contribute to the territorial management. This toolbox is useful for leaders of indigenous organizations, technicians, and institutional techniques that support this territorial management. It has been thought in order to support all the people who live in local communities and Indian villages. The 10 processes that the toolbox has can be observed here. Organization, and this is kind of a river flowing in the Indian life that goes through the colorful Amazonian landscape. By means of all these processes, the actions developed by each one of the communities in order to manage its territory are informed and well organized. Next, we'll see the testimonial of Don Jesus Cuevas. He is the director of the Deputy Central of the Riverside in Rio Marmorena and the department of this area. You have the floor. Well, this is a document of the utmost importance. So here, we would have to manage it properly and to make it known to the users, explaining them what is this toolbox for, why is it important to be able to value it and to know how to work it. Well, this toolbox for the communities is very important indeed, because at the same time we know what type of natural resources are within our communities, to see how we can recover our cultural traditions, such as music, the manufacturing of musical instruments of the area. So, based upon this, we are making this type of work. When we approach the communities, we as technicians, community technicians, will do the same with all the communities, so that community people will understand what we want to do, what we are going to do, and when this communal plan is ready for the new management. Thank you very much, Zulema, for this excellent presentation. And as you said, it is important to mention, to highlight the inclusion of these indigenous people and social organizations who have played a key role in each one of these processes aimed at creating this toolbox. And next, we're going to present Yamil T. Vargas. He was born at the Belicozal in La Paz, Bolivia, and at the same time, he manages the Autonomous University of Santa Cruz, and at present, he takes care of all the territories in Tacana 1 and Tacana 3. And Tacana 1 and Tacana 3, and he will be speaking about this important endeavor. I am Yamil Vargas. I am a technician, double C, and my position is Indigenous Territorial Management of Tacana 1, Tacana 2, Tacana 3, 1, 2, 3. Well, I have been trained by technicians of double CS in terms of governance, cultural value, basic needs, how to fill out the courts and the forms in order for us to see how to train and transmit the knowledge they have shown to us in terms of governance. Basic needs, which is very important indeed in order to convey all this to the communities. I have been given this in terms of the cultural value, the basic needs, and also surveys we have to make about the beaches. This is also on an individual basis. And since I am a young person belonging to the community, thank God we are now overcoming some problems, but we want to have a high mentality in order to really improve our way of life. My community, I want to help my community, and it's very important to rescue and to highlight the knowledge we have had in order for us to see what's the cultural value we have, which is the most meaningful change. Since I am a young people, I am a proprietor of San Miguel. I was born there. I feel I am able to convey the knowledge we have been trained with. And I could say, well, I feel I am a young leader capable of supporting our communities in order to move forward, and to really hope that our parents will support our territory, but we as the young people can become authorities with the knowledge we have had and the governance issue, the point of basic needs, and we can see the three types of words, so to say, which are very important. This is very important because I am a young man and now I feel very capable and satisfied because of what I have learned and I have conveyed to the community. I am very happy in order because I have been able to take this learning to the people and to see how communities are. I am very happy because I have been able to apply the knowledge I have had, and I am satisfied, and it's very important for us to value again the cultural value we have in the community, because little by little we have been losing it. But if we visit once again communities and we say, well, this and that, and for instance, I as a technician, comrade will keep on working for my lands, for my TCO, for my brothers and sisters in Tacana 1, Tacana 2, Tacana 3, because we are the most important protector of nature, and we are here. Very interesting, the speech given to Yamil. And now Mauricio Zarabiev, who belongs to the Chimane town, born in the Colorado community, and he forms part of the Pilun Lajas biosphere, will tell us about the experience he has had with this toolbox in order to manage the territorial. Good morning. My name is Mauricio Zarabiev. I am a technician for Indigenous producers, arts craftsmen in Rio Titipe. Well, it was very important in order to see how we could organize ourselves from the community perspective. So this has been very important in order for us to learn and see how we need to govern. We ourselves who are leaders need to see how to be better organized with all these tools, how we can organize ourselves and how we can really start in order to arrive and comply with our objectives with all the problems that we have in the area. This is a very important tool. This is a very valuable tool. And what we have in this area, as we know, well, we see Rio Titibe. They are some people leaders in charge of all this, and what we do apply is the knowledge they have to understand and how we can really develop the roles we have in our communities. And actually, we need to see how we have to organize ourselves in order to really head all these entrepreneurial activities we have at Lake Titipe. Well, we need to see, as governance states, how we have to start from Rurinabaquia in order to really make this visible in Rio Ninive. And this is very important for me in order for me to better understand all the foundations. And of course, we will also be benefited by the expertise they have in order to develop ourselves. They tell me, yeah, we want to learn from you. We want to do this as well in order to really help the majors and the people. So, and we see what is really what has to do with the ladies who form part of this Trans-Mexico community. This is an entrepreneurial task we have, and they are manufacturing soap and shampoo we will be creating later. There is a lot of support for them. They are supported by their husbands, by the young people. And well, actually, I feel kind of a little bit supported because of the foundations we have been using. This has been an experience, well, that has two sides. On the one hand, we have the highway, the main highway, and well, some people living there do not have this same experiences, and here we have to take into account council members as well. And well, we pray to the gods, to the fish gods when you go fishing. But my experience, and they also have this experience, and along the highway, well, there is a different experience. They do not just pray to the fish gods anything, any favors. They just sail and go fishing. And even when we speak about crops, our ancestors said that while harvesting during the full moon in order not to damage crops was thought of, but now harvests are made in a different way, and even young people, we have ancestral practices that are not anymore applied, whereas in the river we are told, well, that they do not have to harvest very early or during the new moon. So these are valuable experiences for me. For instance, in order for me to move forward with this ancestral recommendations and make use of this new tool in order to attain the objectives that are not attained by some other communities which are not applying this. It is very interesting to have heard Mauricio. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, because you made excellent presentation in order for us to know what is the toolbox for. Next, we will have the Q and A, and in this way we will end this presentation, and we thank all the participants for their attendance. Have a good day, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I will be reading the questions, and might I remind you that you can leave your questions on the chat. And the first question for Lillian Peter is the following: how we can measure the development of capacities for territorial management. Lillian, can you help us? And might I remind you that we have from 2 to 3 minutes to answer this. Lillian, you have the floor. Well, thank you. Precisely, this toolbox has several tools that can allow us to measure the improvement for this territorial management we are alluding to. We have tools to measure the capabilities, the governance capabilities that have to do with indicators of the different decision-making mechanisms, their legitimacy, the capacity institutions have, the degree of participation of different sectors in the organization, and the recognition,
the acknowledgement of the organization. We also have modules that have to do with the means of life and development of entrepreneurial initiatives, and some other modules that have to do with basic needs related to the identification of the well-being from the standpoint of each village, of each people as well, and that have to do with the conservation. And it is important to measure these different elements, and by doing that, we can have an integral view of the status of an indigenous community or a productive community or a company, and the progress made through time. Thank you. Thank you, Lilia, for your reply. We have Luis Vidoso, and says, why process 6 considers gender perspective? Zulema, I think that maybe you can answer this question. Well, in general terms, all the tools include gender perspective in order to include the participation of men, women, young, and children. In process 6, the tool is an analysis of productive chains. And usually it has been seen, or it has been seen through time, that productive chains are observed considering the product from production to the final destination. And in the tool that we are working with, what we see is the involvement of people along the process. Therefore, upon considering that the different people's labor division is different, it is important to stress in which tools of the productive chain are the women taking part. And that allows us to more clearly define who will be the main subjects of certain processes of training, if what we are looking for and if what we are striving for is to solve bottlenecks in order to make this transit easier of products all the way to the final or end consumer. Thank you. Thank you, Zulema. We are receiving a number of questions. We have one question maybe for Mauricio, and says, how do communities value the work of technicians in the development of community plans? Thank you. Good morning. It is important that from the perspective of communities, or the basis of the communities, in order to have a community plan or a yearly plan or life plan, as we call it here, we do it from the communities and reflect upon the objective. That is one of the plans that we have at community level, and how to perceive the space in the community from zoning and spaces available, and how should we aim and work with the different areas. The household, the fishing activity, agriculture, and recollection, like Rio or River Titibeg, where we aim at collection, management, of course, of the resources we collect, and life plans, of course. Thank you very much, Mauricio. Alvaro Sepúlveda says, what's the link to have access to the toolbox? We will share that for you. The Colombian Association of Ethnobiology and others are organizing a science event, and we would like to have you. Where can we be in touch with you? Congratulations. Yes, we will share with you the media and mail information. And a question says, have you used surveys in order to gather information more easily? Maybe Yamil, you can help us with this one. Well, good morning. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. We have met basic needs by working together with the communities and the workshop, and we have gathered information and share it with the maximum authority, that is the mayor or corregidor. We have not had really digital resources in order to do it. We only have the cards or the templates. Thank you, Yamil. We have two questions. One says, what is the support and interaction with the government for the application of these tools? And how does the toolbox articulates with governmental management or local management initiatives and actions? Can you please help us? Well, there has not been an articulation on our experience, but that is mainly due to access to autonomous territories in the case of Bolivia. And they would be, of course, useful for spaces where territories have a greater degree of autonomy. And I believe that the work done to strengthen organization capacities allows indigenous organizations to work and articulate their efforts in a better informed way, and therefore strengthening management from the government by sharing sound information on needs, progress, and the relevance of territorial management for country development. In the case of Bolivia, more than 20% of the country is in indigenous territories at different degrees of consolidation, and therefore that contributes to governance across the country and to the well-being of the planet as a whole. Well, I think that we only have 2 minutes, so I will read part of the chat. Thank you. Good afternoon, Leon Galindo. Excellent panel. Another question from Álvaro Sepúlveda. In the materials, do you have explicit sections of progress, and at the end of the process, is there a certification? Another one, this toolbox, of course, implies or means change. Zulema, maybe you can just make a short comment on this question. Yes, we are articulating with some universities for certification of people who are being trained with the toolbox. And yes, as Lilian mentioned, the tool has a number of indicators, particularly in process number 10, specifically designed for the monitoring of the process of territorial management, of course. I don't know if I skipped anything. Well, I think that we've run out of time. But still, I want to remind you that we are sharing the link of the toolbox for those of you who are interested, and the WC and Zulema email as well, and of the rest of the colleagues contributing to the project. If you're interested to be in touch with us for more information, you have the links. So with no further ado, I think that we are wrapping up the session, and thank you very much for your attendance and for all your comments. So have a wonderful day.